You believe you are in control of your will, but in reality it is being trained by algorithms, sugars, and notifications. The modern world has turned pleasure into a system of domestication. There is no whip, but there is addiction. There is no cell, but there is distraction. And most dangerous of all, it all happens without you even noticing. Every time you open your phone for no reason, snack between meals, scroll through your feed without intention, you are being molded. Pleasure has become a command, and without noticing, you have become a creature of repetition. If this topic makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. This system doesn't pressure, it invites. It doesn't impose. It suggests, and it works. You act less and less by choice and more by impulse. You automatically say yes to easy pleasure and avoid the no that requires effort and control. Nietzsche anticipated this with surgical precision. Most people live seeking comfort, relief, and pleasure as if they were lofty goals. But this constant search is not freedom. It is escape. Escape from pain, boredom, responsibility, and confrontation with reality. The logic is simple. The more you give in to immediate pleasure, the more you train your mind to avoid anything that requires strength, pause, or thought. The invisible system doesn't want you to think. It wants you to react. Because those who think are unpredictable, but those who react are manipulable. And that is precisely why the true philosophical challenge of our time is not to achieve more pleasure. It is to unmask the pleasures that have already dominated us. The question Nietzsche would ask is, who are you without the stimuli that comfort you? You are addicted, not to illegal substances, but to predictable sensations. The chemistry behind this has a name: dopamine. This molecule does not deliver pleasure in itself. It delivers expectation. It is the almost of pleasure that lights up your brain. And that is why the click, the sweet, the like, the purchase are so addictive. They promise something, and your brain buys that promise even if it ends 10 seconds later. Dopamine doesn't ask if what you're doing is good for you. It only asks if it's stimulating, and if it is, it rewards you. That's why useless habits take hold so easily, while powerful habits require brutal force to maintain. Nietzsche would understand this as yet another symptom of modern decadence, a mind that is driven by chemical reactions rather than guided by a higher will. He didn't talk about dopamine, but he did talk about domesticated instincts. The man who surrenders to instant gratification is unconsciously saying, "I'd rather be anesthetized than awake." And here's the trap. The more you get used to easy dopamine, the less tolerance you have for reality. Everything seems boring, slow, dull, because your brain is already conditioned to the rhythm of the stimulus, not real life. This turns even moments of silence into discomfort. You can't go 5 minutes without checking something, consuming something, chewing something. The emptiness becomes unbearable because it offers no dopamine. But what Nietzsche would provoke us to think is, what if the problem isn't the emptiness, but your dependence on filling it? Those who cannot bear boredom will also not be able to bear freedom. At this point, it's no longer just chemistry, it's philosophy. And the question is, who is in control of your mind, you or your dopamine levels? Pleasure has become synonymous with well-being, and well-being has become synonymous with the good life. But Nietzsche saw this as a dangerous mistake, a reversal of values that turns strength into weakness. According to him, the obsession with comfort is one of the greatest corruptions of the human will, because comfort never comes alone. It requires you to give up tension, struggle, effort. It requires you to accept being less than you could be, as long as you don't feel pain. Nietzsche saw this as an existential surrender, a soul that exchanges power for anesthesia. He did not attack pleasure itself, but the use we make of it to avoid the discomfort necessary for growth. The truth, he points out, is brutal. Those who live seeking pleasure as a goal are running away from reality as it is. The world was not made to please you. It was made to test you, and every unbridled pursuit of comfort is an attempt to escape the test. Worse, the pursuit of comfortable pleasure is still celebrated. You deserve it. Treat yourself. Listen to your body. Respect your limits. Modern slogans that, repeated uncritically, transform self-discipline into oppression and pleasure into an absolute right. Nietzsche called this kind of mentality slave morality. an ethic built to justify weakness, elevate cowardice, and ridicule greatness. Because those who stand up, who break patterns, who endure discomfort, are uncomfortable. They show what others could be, but chose not to be. And therein lies Nietzsche's provocation. Perhaps comfortable pleasure is not a reward. Perhaps it is a symptom of weakness. Perhaps true pleasure lies in facing what you avoid, in going through the pain that transforms you. You don't even notice it anymore. Your finger slides, your mouth chews, the screen flashes. It's all become automatic. But what seems trivial is actually a silent ritual of conditioning. The modern brain has become a radar for easy rewards. Every tweet, every notification, every scroll through your feed. It's a microdose of stimulation that reinforces one thing. You don't have to wait. You don't have to think. Just consume. These micro-pleasures are not random. They are designed. The sweet taste is calibrated to hook you. Social media is programmed to keep you scrolling. Notifications are designed to create urgency. All of this forms a dopamine architecture that turns the day into a sequence of rewarded distractions. Nietzsche would say that we are behaving like trained animals, not because we are irrational, but because we choose to surrender reason in exchange for comfort. Technology is not the problem. The problem is passive, repetitive, automatic use. It is the habit of giving in whenever something shiny catches our eye. And the most perverse thing is that this chain of stimuli reprograms our sense of reward. Deep tasks, long-term goals, real achievements, all of this starts to seem too heavy, too slow, because your brain has already been trained to receive rewards in seconds. That's the trick. Easy pleasure doesn't just occupy time, it destroys the ability to desire the difficult. And what's left? A human being who feels constantly tired, scattered, frustrated, but without understanding why. The answer lies in those invisible moments, in the repeated click, in the cookie you don't need, in the short video that has become an addiction. You don't need an external enemy when you already have an internal routine sabotaging your power. Want to know how trapped you are? Try spending a whole day without these automatic pleasures. No sweets, no screens, no notifications. The anxiety you feel will be the exact measure of how much control you've lost. It all starts with a simple gesture: opening your phone, eating when you're not hungry, avoiding silence. But these repeated gestures form something bigger, a training. And it's not just the body that's being trained, it's the soul. Nietzsche saw the body as powerful, yes, but also dangerous if left without direction. When the body dominates the will, the soul bows down. And that's exactly what happens when we follow our impulses without resistance. The body dictates the rules and the spirit just obeys. You feel thirsty, you drink. You feel bored, you pick up your phone. You feel anxious, you reach for sugar. It seems natural, but in reality, it's conditioning. Every time you respond automatically to an impulse, you are teaching your mind something. Don't question, just relieve. This is the opposite of autonomy. It is a process of gentle, almost imperceptible submission. The body demands and you give in. And the cruelest part? The world applauds it. It calls it listening to your body, being kind to yourself, accepting your desires. But Nietzsche saw this as a modern form of slavery, not with chains, but with rewards. The problem is not having desires. It is being dominated by them. When the body is the master, the soul weakens. It loses the ability to say no. It loses its taste for effort. It loses clarity about what freedom is. Because real freedom is not doing what you want. It is knowing why you want it. It is being able to go against the impulse when the impulse demeans you. Nietzsche believed in a strong soul that commands, resists, and shapes the body, instead of being shaped by it. But this strength does not come from comfort. It comes from confrontation. With your habits, with your excuses, with your own body. Nietzsche believed that every human being carries within themselves a vital force called the will to power, the impulse to grow, create, master oneself, and transcend what one is. But this will is not guaranteed. It can be stifled, sabotaged, dormant. And that's exactly what automatic pleasures do. They hijack the energy that could be used to build and drain it into distractions. Every time you choose easy relief, you are weakening that silent will that pushes you toward greatness. Potency doesn't disappear all at once. It dilutes. You feel it as a diffuse fatigue, a loss of clarity, an emptiness that even the next pleasure cannot fill. This is not depression. It is the will to power screaming for space but being drowned out by useless stimuli. Nietzsche did not accept this surrender disguised as comfort. For him, a life that avoids effort, that fears discomfort, that seeks pleasure as an end in itself, is a life that betrays the very nature of human beings. Because pleasure, when it becomes an end in itself, becomes an anesthetic for power. And here's the hardest blow. The habits that seem harmless, the automatic series, the constant fast food, the endless scrolling apps, are, in practice, preventing you from expressing what is greatest in you. The time you spend on useless pleasure is the same time that could be channeled into creating, learning, breaking patterns. But instead of directing your energy upward, you dissipate it. You choose pleasure over power, relief over progress. This choice, repeated thousands of times a day, slowly destroys your capacity for profound action, and the will to power, when ignored for too long, does not disappear. It rots, and what was once an impulse for growth turns into silent resentment. The symptom? The feeling of being stuck even when you're doing a lot. A busy but empty life. Constant effort, but without direction. If you feel this way, it may be time to ask yourself, what is consuming your will to power? You think you are choosing, but in fact, you are repeating. Most modern pleasures are not experiences, they are schedules. And unconscious repetition becomes addiction. Nietzsche knew that what is repeated without reflection becomes servitude, even if it tastes like freedom. It's easy to confuse "I want" with "I need," but the line between desire and dependence is thin, and most of the time you only realize you've crossed it when you try to stop. Pleasure, when experienced as a conscious choice, can be energy, but when it becomes an automatic response, it turns into a sweet-smelling prison. Think about your daily patterns. You feel anxious, so you eat. You feel bored, so you scroll through your phone. You feel empty, so you shop. Are you making decisions, or just obeying invisible commands? Modern addiction is clean, silent, elegant. It doesn't smell like alcohol or look like drugs, but it acts the same way. It alters your chemistry, conditions your behavior, destroys your autonomy. It is a socially accepted addiction, widely encouraged and invisibly devastating. Nietzsche would warn us, what you repeat shapes who you are, and what you can't stop repeating already controls you. The danger isn't in the pleasure itself, it's in the pleasure you can't deny. That's the real test, the pleasure you're able to refuse even when it's available. That reveals whether you're master or slave of your will. The problem isn't liking chocolate, social media, or comfort. The problem is needing it to function. It's not being able to say no anymore, even when you know you should. Addiction doesn't scream, it whispers, just today, just a little. You deserve it, and you obey, thinking you're in control. Nietzsche would call this masked decadence, a life where pleasure has been promoted to compass, and discipline has become oppression. Do you want to change? Start by observing. Before any transformation, you need to track down what is sabotaging you, with surgical precision. So the challenge now is simple. Write down every automatic pleasure in your day. Yes, all of them. From the coffee you drink without noticing to the touch on your cell phone that happens for no clear reason. Every sweet, every click, every swipe of your finger. You will track your mind like someone searching a minefield, because that is exactly what it has become, a field full of small distractions that silently weaken you. Nietzsche would say that this is the first act of real will, to look squarely at what you repeat without thinking. It's uncomfortable, it's exhausting, but it's necessary, because only what is seen can be faced. The idea is simple. For an entire day, every time you seek an easy pleasure, you stop and write it down. What am I feeling right now? What am I trying to avoid with this stimulus? Is this a choice or an escape? You will be surprised. You will realize that many of these actions have no purpose, no real pleasure. They are just conditioned reflexes, and that's where clarity begins. This stimulus diary is not just an exercise in observation, it is a break with the automatic. Each note is a small victory of consciousness over habit, a gesture of resistance against modern conditioning. Nietzsche would call this affirming life as it is, looking at the ugly, the uncomfortable, the mechanical, and not running away. Because only those who face their own repetition have a chance to create something new. Do you want to regain your will? Then start by mapping it out. See where it has been hijacked. See when you give in and why. Most people shy away from this exercise because it dismantles the illusion of, I am in control. But that is precisely why it works. The question now is no longer what gives you pleasure. The question is, what are you avoiding facing every time you seek that pleasure? Today, any discomfort seems like a failure. Feeling boredom, pain, hunger, silence, everything is seen as something to be immediately resolved. But Nietzsche saw this as a fatal mistake, because by avoiding suffering, you also avoid transformation. There is no true growth without voluntary pain. The body only evolves when it suffers weight. The mind only expands when it is challenged. The soul only strengthens when it faces discomfort by choice, not by obligation. This is where the brutal and liberating concept comes in. Suffering by choice is the highest act of freedom. When you say no to easy pleasure and choose the difficult path, not out of guilt but out of vision, you are reprogramming your essence. Nietzsche called this the affirmative tragic, the ability to look at necessary suffering and say, yes, I accept. Because there are pains that heal, there are voids that cleanse, there are silences that reveal, but only if you can bear to be in them, without dulling your mind with empty stimuli. Voluntary suffering is not a cult of pain. It is a conscious refusal of anesthesia. It is sitting with discomfort and learning from it. It is sweating, waiting, making mistakes. Without seeking quick relief, without seeking escape, you begin to realize that true pleasure is not what relieves. It is what liberates. And freedom requires effort. It requires loss. It requires friction. Those who choose controlled discomfort become immune to unnecessary suffering. Because pain no longer frightens, it instructs. This is the turning point. The suffering you accept by choice becomes a tool. Discipline, fasting, silence, delayed pleasure, all of these become acts of affirmation, not punishment. Nietzsche believed that only those who embrace inner chaos can generate a dancing star, and this chaos is not born of pleasure. It is born of the struggle against it. Now it all connects. You are not just dealing with habits or dopamine. You are facing an existential choice, to live anesthetized or to live awake. Nietzsche gives us this truth. Freedom is not comfortable. It requires sacrifice. It requires resistance. Pleasure, on the other hand, is easy, fast, available. But every time you seek it without awareness, you sell yourself short, cheap. The automatic pleasures of everyday life are not sins. They are distractions. They steal your power not with pain, but with comfort. They don't break your will violently. They dissolve it into small reliefs. The will to power that dwells within you is in constant war with this vicious comfort, and every choice counts. Every no to easy stimulation. Every yes to necessary discomfort. These are the building blocks of your inner freedom. Suffering voluntarily, refusing easy dopamine, enduring emptiness, looking inward, is the most radical act anyone can commit in a world trained to flee pain. Because those who accept chosen suffering gain something that no pleasure can give: sovereignty. You cease to be a reactor and become a creator. You stop being pulled by impulses and start moving toward a vision. This is the Nietzschean turn, transforming pain into direction, discomfort into clarity, and pleasure into a tool, not a prison. The man who chooses to suffer consciously is not a martyr. He is a strategist. He understands that true joy is not found in constant pleasure, but in the consistency between who he is and who he chooses to be. So the final question is simple and straightforward. Will you continue to seek the pleasure that weakens you, or will you face the pain that sets you free? If this content made sense to you, like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want, share in the comments. What automatic pleasure sabotages you the most in your daily life?